I tried to give a lot of clarity in the dressing room, and it was only that the message, accept it so late, we have to learn from it, but there's no point now spending one bit of energy or thoughts that is going to take anything out of Sunday, because we're going to have to be at our best again in the Premier League against Palace to beat them, and I want everybody just recovering mentally and physically to be in the best possible condition for the game.
Well, Arsenal are out of the Europa League. Mikel Arteta there speaking after their defeat on penalties last night to Sporting Lisbon. They can now solely focus on the Premier League, and what's key for them this weekend is that they play and Manchester City don't, because Man City are, of course, in FA Cup action. But they're facing a Crystal Palace side who are now managerless after they sacked Patrick Vieira. Surprised?
Not really, not based on results. I felt like Patrick deserved a little bit more time. I thought he did a good job last season, changed the way they played from the Roy Hodgson style back to a little bit more expansive, getting their attractive players on the ball a lot quicker. But they've struggled in recent weeks to score goals, even have attempts on goal. So, I can see it from both sides. I can see why Steve Parish made a decision to make a change, because rather than sitting on his hands, he decided to push the button and see if anyone else can fare better. The results haven't been good enough, but they've had a tough run of fixtures, by the way. But unfortunate for Patrick, I feel for him.
As you say, the fixtures have been tough for Crystal Palace, Jermaine, and the fixtures to come for them are pretty much all the teams below them in the Premier League table. So why do you think they made this decision now?
Because it's you panic when you get to this stage of the season. Obviously Crystal Palace want to stay in the Premier League. It's the best league in the world, and I feel like, of course, I wouldn't say I was surprised when it happened, because when you're not getting results, it's just the way the game is now. The game's based on results. If you're not getting results, you're going to lose your job. As simple as that. Last season was fantastic, and the team obviously spoke about the way they play, and of course there's got to be like a tactical element with coaches. At times can become frustrating, because sometimes with coaches, you coach and you coach the team how to build up from the back and all that sort of players to make a difference. That's the sort of pressure you put on your forward players. But for some reason, they're creating chances, but they just can't score goals. So I can imagine that's something that he must have won the number 9. Didn't happen, and unfortunately he's lost his job in that. But you look at those fixtures there, it will be tough for them, but we'll see who comes in.
The Arsenal game's going to be very tough, we know that. But after that, they've got five cup finals. Teams in and around them. If you can beat them teams, it puts the distance between you and them. So, very important. They've got a temporary manager at the moment, Paddy McCarthy, been there, captain the club, knows it inside out, along with Daryl Powers, gone in as assistant. But a big ask. It's a lot easier, I know myself, coaching the under-21s than it is going and managing the Premier League. But I'm sure they have something up their sleeve, regarding the manager.
You'd imagine that they've sacked Patrick Vieira. They do have a plan in place to do it just before the international break as well, that's coming up next week, Tim. Roy Hodgson is a name that's been mentioned.
Yeah, well...
Could he be back?
Well, you never say never, and Roy's retired twice already, so... Listen, he won't be fazed by any games, and I think it's quite a good move not to let whoever's coming in next have the Arsenal away game. Best to bring him in with the winnable fixtures. Not that that's not winnable. Of course it is. Anyone beats anyone in the Premier League, but it's highly... It's unrealistic for them to think they'll go away with a new manager at the weekend and beat Arsenal. But they're going to need a manager as quickly as possible. They need someone of experience of the Premier League, and hopefully get the best out of the squad of players they have, because you have to admit, over the last few months, Patrick's not got the best out of them.
This will be a game now that Mikel Arteta and this Arsenal side have to win. 8 points clear at the top of the table they can go if they win, with Man City not playing this weekend. That will put pressure on City as well, won't it?
Of course, I think, but City, they've got that know-how. I don't think that was sort of like faze Man City, to be honest. The amount of, leagues that they've won, experienced players that have been there and done it.
You just don't want to say Arsenal can win the league, do you?
I'm trying not to mention Arsenal here, but, credit where credit's due. They've been fantastic. The job that he's done, it's been phenomenal, to be honest, and the way that they play. And to be honest, the way that they're playing, you can't really see them dropping any points, to be honest, Tim.
Listen, they've brought in some experience. Jesus is back fit now, Zinchenko, Jorginho, players who have won the Premier League. So he's tried to buy that experience to a very young group of players. And at the moment, I agree with Jermaine, don't look like they're going to falter, but I just give the advantage to Man City because of course and distance. They've done it before. They're the serial winners of this competition. Arsenal will be hoping that they wouldn't have fought it last night, but out of the Europa League now, they've just got to concentrate on one thing, that's winning the Premier League. Easier said than done. And they will just hope that Man City keep in the Champions League as long as possible. And we all know that they want the Champions League more than anything. But if you ask me now who to pick one, I would say Man City because of the experience and because of they've got a genius of a manager in Pep Guardiola.
The only trophy they can win this season is the Premier League. So if Man City and Pep Guardiola do pit them to the title, how deflating a season could that be for Arsenal if they don't win anything after the season they've had?
Of course it'd be deflating because I think when you're so close, there's a lot of football to be played, but when you're so close, you look at it and you think, would it ever be a better chance? Obviously with this Man City team, they just seem like they're just going to dominate English football for many years. So you look at Arsenal, you think, if they don't win it this year, would they ever get a better chance to win it? I think that's the sort of way that they're probably thinking at the minute.
I agree. Liverpool are going to get better. Chelsea can't have a season like they've had. Man United look like they're on the climb as well. It's the best chance they're ever going to have to win the Premier League.
Mikel Arteta strengthened the squad in January, though. One of the players he brought in was Leandro Trossard. Are we starting to see how valuable that transfer is, Tim?
I think he's really... It was an astute signing, someone who hadn't had to learn how the Premier League is, hit the floor running, knows exactly what it entails to play at this level of competition, and he's done brilliantly. I mean, 3 assists last week against Fulham, a record in the Premier League. Brilliant for him.
When you look at him, when you watch him, he's an Arsenal player, isn't he?
Yeah.
Just the way he plays, the way he moves, picks up really interesting areas, really clever. He's an Arsenal player, but he's been brilliant.
Their recruitment's been outstanding, and he typifies that. Odegaard in the picture there is magnificent as well, but this boy plays in tight areas, knows when to stretch him. They would learn straight away as soon as he turns up in training. When you get new players and you have a look at him in training, they would know within 10 minutes whether he can fit into their style, and obviously he has. Considering
they were after Mikel Mudryk and they had that battle with Chelsea and they ended up getting Leandro Trossard, have they ended up with the better signing?
Well, less risk because he knows the Premier League. Mudryk's obviously struggled for Chelsea to get game time. It's obviously Graham Potter don't think that he's up to speed in the Premier League, but I think long-term he'd be a very good signing, but a lot cheaper. And it looks like he's producing the numbers at the moment, Trossard.
Yeah, you mentioned Gabriel Jesus returning from injury. He got his first appearance in the game last weekend since the World Cup. But how does he get back into the team now when they've all been playing so well?
Yeah, it's all about Eddie Nketiah, where, that came into the team. And then you pick up an injury as a centre forward, and sometimes you come back from injury and you have to wait. When the team's winning, of course, everyone's happy. We're all in it together. You're happy, but at the same time, everyone wants to play. And before we got injured, to be honest, he was such an important player. I think there's more to his game than there's just goals. He picks up really interesting areas. He drops deeper. He links play. But I'm sure they'll try and get him up to speed, and once he gets up to speed, he can get himself back in the team for sure.
Just looking at those fixtures there, 26th of April.
That's the one.
Midweek game, Manchester City and Arsenal face each other. Is that the title decider? Yeah,
that's the one. Liverpool away would be obviously a difficult game as well, because Liverpool against the head-to-heads, against the top teams, they turn up. They're dropping points against the lower teams. But yeah, certainly that's one you can't keep your eyes off, and I'm sure Guardiola and Arteta are both looking at that.
To give a lot of clarity in the dressing room, and it was only that the message, accept it too late, we have to learn from it, but there's no point now spending one bit of energy or thoughts that is going to take anything out of Sunday, because we're going to have to be at our best again in the Premier League against Palace to beat them, and I want everybody just recovering mentally and physically to be in the best possible condition for the game.